Biscotti's back in the house of Wargaming, and you know what that means. It's time for one of those talking head videos where you can kind of put the phone down and go about your commute, do a little painting, maybe do some dishes, cook a little dinner while you listen to Mr. Wargaming, do a little bit of a deep dive into some of the conventional wisdom that gets parroted, no offense, around the digital water cooler, and remind you why conventional wisdom is so often worth a second look. Today we're going to be talking about IGO-UGO activation systems and why they are fantastic. All of the ways that they work well and why you should stop disparaging them. People will just automatically knee-jerk call these old school systems that have been supplanted and exceeded by the systems of today. We're going to talk about why that's not necessarily true. But before we do, let's just establish a couple of ground rules. We're not here to validate your gaming choices. You may have particular styles of activation that you really enjoy, and that's great. Not here to cast aspersions on other systems. We're not here to talk about them at all. Whether they're good, bad, indifferent, doesn't factor into the equation. And if you really need someone to tell you what a special boy you are, how handsome your gaming is, go talk to your mom. Go talk to literally any of the other channels around here that avoid any kind of judgment call. They're not interested in improving. They're not interested in helping you achieve your goals in miniature wargaming. Here we are. And that may mean that an IGO-UGO whole side activation system is the route that you want to take. If you are doing a little bit of tinkering on the side, if you're designing miniature war games, do not cast out the IGO-UGO system just out of hand. It has much to recommend why this system works so well. We should probably start off by defining our terms. For the purposes of this video, we'll use IGO-UGO as a shorthand for those systems where one player does everything with all of his pieces. Now, when I say pieces, I mean his decision-making, his discrete units of decision-making. It could be a huge block of troops in the case of a rank and flank unit, like chainmail. It could be a single unit, for example, in any kind of skirmish game that you care to name. The IGO-UGO system we're talking about today is where one player moves all of his units, and then the other player moves all of his units. And the term moves there includes moving, shooting, fighting, morale, melee checks, all of that, recovery checks, all of that. I'm going to do stuff with all of my pawns, and then you get a turn to do everything with all of your pawns that survive. It has a bad reputation, probably because of the 800-pound wargaming gorilla in the room, Warhammer 40K, where winning the initiative on the first turn means that you get the first shots, and there's a good chance your opponent isn't going to even get to use some of his units because they've been knocked off the table before he has a chance to activate them. This is a danger in pretty much any game system, but it's felt particularly heavy in an IGO-UGO system. We're into the analysis already, and I haven't even mentioned two things. One, the reason why I can prove that it's a great system, and two, like kind of a metagame reason. So let's talk about the proof. This IGO-UGO system is pretty much how most miniature war games worked for the first 10 to 30 years, depending on how you want to slice it. This was the dominant paradigm. This is just how games worked until people started coming up with all kinds of new and novel and elegant situations or solutions to the question of how come I got to sit here and wait for 15, 20 minutes before I even get to do anything. It was the dominant game design structure for two reasons. One, it's fun. It just works. Two, it's simple, and that's the metagamey reason. It's really easy to understand. It's the system that most games use. It's just blown up because our games are so much larger and more complex than other games. It's the system used in chess, except that in chess you're only moving one piece at a time. It is also the system used in Go. IGO-UGO. IGO-UGO. It's really easy to understand. If you're the kind of person who is dedicated to growing the hobby and introducing new people to the hobby, do not start out with a system like Song of Blades and Heroes or Dragon Rampant. Both wonderful games, but in both of those games, there's a very good chance that you're not doing anything on your turn. Maybe not a great chance. There are ways to mitigate that. There are strategies and tactics to implement, and there are things you can do tactically to reduce those odds. But wait a minute, we haven't even started the game yet, and already you've introduced some high-level risk-reward analyses. It's so much easier to just tell somebody, here's all your guys. You pick one that you want to move first. I can even give you the first activation so that you get an opportunity to choose each of your units, move, shoot, get comfortable. Alternatively, why don't I do my activation first so I can tell you what I'm thinking? I can show you how the game works. And then after I've made all of my choices, now it's your turn to make choices. This is a simple system. It can be very complicated to understand all of the tactics and strategies of which unit do I want to move first. And that is, of course, one of the blessings of this system, that you have greater leeway to come up with a plan and to implement that plan. You can have designated units for designated jobs that need to go first. A unit which is responsible for opening a path. A heavy infantry blasting open a path between units so that your light cavalry can punch through and get into the backfield. That's a plan that works really well in this system. It opens up methods of play. It's easy to understand. These are two of the metagame reasons why it's such a great system. But here we are 5 minutes into the video, give or take, and I should probably point out something really important. It's not the perfect system for every situation. IGO-YUGO is a tool. It's a tool in your game design toolbox, and you shouldn't cast it aside just because everybody says it's too old and there are better systems. It's a great system for doing what it does. And if you keep in mind the purpose of this system, if you understand when to use an IGO-YUGO system, then you can have a better appreciation for when to implement it. And ultimately, what we're talking about here is, what does the IGO-YUGO system do for games? When does it shine? When should we use it? And we've already covered the biggest one of those. It's great for introducing noobs to the process of playing a miniature war game. It simplifies and streamlines activation, so they're not worried about the tactics and strategies of how many units do I nominate, which units do I nominate, do I want to press my luck? Don't worry about pressing your luck. You're going to get to do all this stuff. Everybody gets a chance to go. It's just a question of which one goes when. So, for the next portion of this video, what I really want to do is talk about what it does well, and then that can guide our thinking as to when we should implement that. So the biggest thing that I can think of is that it works great for pacing the experience of playing a miniature war game. If you're playing a quick 20-minute game where the action is fast and furious, where you're going to get in, get some miniatures on the table, roll some dice, and get out, you might not need this. If you're playing even a 45-minute game where there's only 3 or 4 units on the table and you can flip back and forth between offense and defense, where you can, you're playing hot potato and it's really just the action is fast and furious, by all means, you probably don't want to use this system. On the other hand, if you've got 12 guys sitting around a table, each of those 12 guys has its own little faction, or even 6-on-6, and you have to figure out which one of those 12 guys is going to activate a unit right now. This isn't great. It's not going to work well for that. You're going to want a system where those 6 guys can do their stuff, and then these 6 guys can do their stuff. It's all about portioning out the teams so the teams can work together on a side-by-side basis. This is also really important for pacing a game, just from a perspective of, if you are really dialed in and you are intensely interested and you're running the numbers and you really have to figure out, you've got a complicated game system with a lot going on here, there, and everywhere, you can't maintain that kind of cognitive load for a full 4-hour session. Okay, granted, in convention setting, maybe it's a half an hour of setting up, half an hour of tearing down, half an hour of learning the rules, but even 2 hours, 2.5 hours of just operating in the red line on a mental load, that's hard. That can be really grueling. Those are the kind of experiences where when you're done with the convention game, man, you're just like, oh, I am drained. I'm probably dehydrated. I didn't think to eat. I didn't think to drink. My blood sugar's low. I just didn't have time. I was so dialed into the game. And that's what we mean by that. One of the things that we talk about sometimes is whether or not a game is immersive. That is really immersive, to be in that situation. But you got 3 slots. You got to do that for 3 or 4 games at a convention a day. You can't maintain that kind of pace. you got to step back. You got to have some time. It's like an action movie. You don't have action, 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 action. If you do that, it gets to be boring after a while because it's the same old thing. Even in an action movie, a high-paced action movie, there'll be moments of excitement, and then they'll kind of stop, and we'll have maybe a little bit of drama, maybe a little bit of sneaking around, maybe a little bit of romance thrown in there, because we need to step back. We need to catch our breath. And then we can gear up, ramp up. We'll get into another fantastic, exciting. Miniature war games are much the same way. They operate under the same principle. I have to get all of my stuff done. And maybe you have a shot clock. Maybe you got one of those chess clocks. Maybe you don't. But in a game like, I understand the tournament games of Warhammer 40K do this a lot. You got a limited time frame. I've only got 2 hours. You've got 2 hours. When I'm going, I got to go, go, go. I got to move my guys. If I have a horde army, it's going to be even harder. If I have just a few models on the table, but they have an enormous amount of skills and powers, then I have to be judging all of that. And so I can get through my activation. And now I can sit back and I can just stop and I can think. I can decompress for a little bit. You're going to do all of your shooting. I might have to make some save throws, but it's really simple. I got hit. I know what my target numbers are. I can roll a few dice. I don't need to stress out about how I'm reacting. Maybe I need to keep one ear open. I got to keep my threat sensors up because I have some special abilities that will allow me to interrupt your turn. Oh, you're charging? That unit can countercharge. Maybe it can, maybe it can't. I got to remember that. Just keep an eye on them. When I see you start to move your chargers up, then I go, wait a minute, hold on. I have a chance that I can intercept you with this other unit, right? So, but I don't have to think quite so hard. And I can take it, I can have a little snack. If you're at a convention game and you're sitting with 5 guys on your side, you got a little time to talk about, get to know the guy who's sitting next to you because you're not constantly 100% dedicated to the game. Those guys are going. You drove in from how far? Wow, I bet that was a long drive. All the usual questions that you would ask guys. Oh, what's your, do you want to get together sometime and play, in the garage and throw some dice later on? You need time for that. And the game is a good way to do that. Or even, and this is the other reason why IGO-UGO is good, it gives you that break where you can stop and think about your tactics holistically. You can think about how all of your units fit together and how their abilities combine to form something that is greater than the sum of its parts. You can look for the synergies of the situation. You can address the changing game table state with a little bit of leisure to it. Take a little bit more time. You can find those clever things that you didn't notice. You can check the rules. Wait a minute. I think I can do this thing over here, but I got to check the rule book. And in a system where you're using alternating units, there may not just be time for that. You may not want your friend. You're taking time away from your friend's game. Because if I'm not moving, he's moving. And so if he's moving, then I'm not. Then maybe me checking the rule book slows the game down. And that 30-minute of rip-snorting good fun we talked about before with alternating activations, it just disappears. Because I have to call a timeout and I have to go to the rule book. Now, you can go to rule 0. We'll just make it up and we'll fix it in post. But that's not what we do here. When we're playing a game, we like to play that game. And if you always fall back to the safety net of rule 0, then you're very rarely going to be incentivized to learn to play the game properly. And the IGO-UGO team-sided one-side activation system gives you the downtime at the table to crack open the book and realize, oh, you know what? I'm double checking that guy's powers. I think I know what he's going to do. And I think I have the perfect counter here, but I got to go to 3 different sections of the rule book to explain how those rules fit together. I can look it up because I don't have the activity going on my side of the table. It's his turn. I've got time. And this is a really important benefit of the IGO-UGO system that I think goes unheralded. Because we live in a fast-paced society where if you're not actively engaged, people assume that you're just not engaged at all. And this is simply not true. You don't need physical motion to have a buy-in to the game itself. Some of us like a little time to sit back and just think. And the motion may not be physical on the table. We may not be rolling dice, flipping over cards, but the hamster is just going 1,000 miles a minute in his wheel. And it's a lot easier to sit back and look at the game state, look at the table, look at your guy next to you, look at the guy across the table, and come up with a solid plan. The classic analogy here, I think we've probably used this before, is football. And again, I'll remind you guys, I'm an American, I'm speaking the American language. For those of you Euro trash that instantly bristle, oh, he doesn't mean soccer. And this is the comparison, football and soccer. He means American football. No, that's not how language works, guys. I'm speaking my language. If you don't like my language, there's like a comment section down there. You can complain that you don't like my language, and then nobody will ever see it. So I wouldn't recommend it. But you can, of course, do that. The point is, in the game of soccer, the ball is always in motion. And I know a lot of Americans criticize soccer because, oh, the score is 1-0. I'm not one of those guys. I'm a hockey guy. So I understand that it's not the score that counts. It's the scoring chances that count. And a 1-0 game with 50 scoring chances, 50 solid chances for the ball to hit the back of the net, that is an exciting time. And you can't really step away. You got to watch because you never know when somebody's going to take that flyer from center court or whatever they call it, the middle of the field. I would call it the 50-yard line. And that's nice because, again, even soccer has those periods where a team is making a run. And so the action ramps up. And then the ball is kind of puttering around center court or the center, whatever you call it, the center of the pitch. And you're waiting for that next solid opportunity to develop, a little bit of passing right. And then things get exciting again. And in American football, so that's kind of your activation by unit. But in American football, we have a clock. We have a play clock. And we say, okay, hey, everybody stop. We're going to set up a play. We're going to run a play. And it might be a pass play. It might be a running play. We might have to audible out of it. It might be a broken play. The other team anticipated what we were doing and we have to change it on the fly. But we had time. We have 45 seconds. The ball is put down. We can talk for a second. Hey, what is the other guy showing us? Where are their weaknesses? We can analyze. Now, the guys playing at the professional level do that instantly. They're not stupid. They can see the play developing in ways that I can't. And I'm a student of the game. I've been studying it for 30 years. It's a phenomenal game. I love it. But one of the things I love most about it is the pacing of the game. You have a moment to step back, take a breath, come up with a play, come up with a couple of alternatives if plan A doesn't work, because we all know plan A never works. Have a plan B ready to go, and in my case, a plan C or even a plan D. This is the beauty of the IGO-UGO system. It's not just beginner friendly. It's not just flexible. It's also incredibly good pacing for your games, particularly when it comes to a game with a lot of players or a lot of time involved. Anytime you're dealing with a 3 to 4 hour game, or like Jim Ozarski's, long running campaign games over there on his channel, they can get up to be 20, 30, 40 hours. Now they're playing 4 hours at a time, but they need that ability to go hard in the paint and then come back and take a little deep breath and kind of think about where things are. Go see how this play works. Whoa, that didn't work. I need to retreat. Or that worked really well. How do I capitalize on that? You take a deep breath. And this is also, this is part of modern doctrine of grab what you can, consolidate. Okay, now we've consolidated. Now we build up our forces for another big push. Grab what you can, consolidate. IGO-UGO activations reflect the real world in a lot of ways, and they are very powerful tools for keeping people engaged in a game. That probably would have sounded counterintuitive at the start of the video, but now that we've kind of walked through how these processes actually work, I think you can understand how this seemingly simple design choice adds a whole lot of complexity to the game and how fascinating and interesting it can be. And honestly, I'm rarely the smartest guy in the room, so I can imagine that there's a lot of commenters that have other valuable insights to why the IGO-UGO system is such a perennial around the wargaming table. Take a look down in the description. You guys are good. I know you guys have other contributions to make. What I want to leave you with is, don't buy into the myth that the IGO-UGO activation is a bad system inherently. It may be a bad system for the application. it may not be the proper route to take to get to the experience you're looking for, but it has much to recommend it. And don't listen to the people that just automatically knee-jerk tell you that abandoning it wholesale is an advancement in the hobby. They haven't really added anything to the conversation, and it's clear that they haven't really thought about the IGO-YUGO system in a deep and meaningful way. They're probably just saying what everybody says because they're herd animals. And around here, House of Wargaming, we know that when everybody is implementing the same tactic, the same strategy, and the same counter to that, it's time to get out of the center of the herd and start looking around the veldt, looking around the grasslands, start looking for some new ground to occupy. Look for some new ways to do this. And in many cases, all too often, the best new way to do something is the old way that's been discarded. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope you'll take a second look at IGO-YUGO systems and when it's appropriate to use them. Until next time, from me and Biscotti both, remember, I'm praying for you.